Hey everybody, Corey here, coming at you with another knife review. This time it is of the, what is it? The Defcon Knives Mako. If you're new around here, consider subscribing. I try to buy a new knife every single month. The Defcon Mako has been sitting in a box. Ooh, spoiler alert. The Defcon Mako has been sitting in a box for about 9 months since I bought it. I recently decided to liquidate my collection, and the Mako was one of the first knives that I thought of because it had been sitting in a box for so long. I want to start this video with a brief little intro since I know most of you don't stick around for the entire video. Don't lie, YouTube tells me that you don't, you damn bastards. Anyhow, this is a really good knife. This is a really good knife, and as a matter of fact, it's so good that as I started doing the review for it, I also decided that actually, I'm not going to sell it because this knife is so good. It is actually an example of what I want every single knife to be straight out of the box. And I know that it's going to be a big ask, but let me just give you a few things here, right? Real quick, before we get into the actual review. Titanium, S35VN, less than 150 bucks, no blade play, perfect centering, and oh, by the way, this action actually gravity shut right out of the box. Kind of right out of the box. I had to clean it up, but we'll talk about that later. Man, if you take away anything from this video, this is a big deal. This is a good knife. And I'm actually a little ashamed of myself to even think about the fact that I considered getting rid of it because, again, now that I handle it, whoo, it's nice. So stick around. We're going to get into the specs. We're going to get into the full review. I hope you guys end up enjoying. That's it. I won't see you guys next time. I'll say that at the end of the video. All right. See ya. All right, guys, let's get into the specifications for the Defcon Knives Mako. This is an S35VN blade. It is a titanium frame lock. It's coming in at about 144 bucks. We will talk about that in the value proposition section of this video. The overall length is 8.75 inches, with 3.5 of that being blade length, and it has a blade thickness of 0.14 inches at the thickest portion of the spine. I'm going to post an image after I am done talking with the other relevant specs in comparison to the other two knives that I typically show here. Those two knives would be the Ontario Knives Rat 2, which is my conventionally small knife, and the Off-Grid Knife Scorpion, which is my conventionally large knife. I will point this out. I'm not sure exactly where they are getting their measurements from. I think they might not be including the glass breaker, because when I line these up and I put them butt to butt, it looks like the Mako is clearly larger than the Off-Grid Knife Scorpion. However, they both have a listed overall length of 8.75 inches. So, you know, for whatever reason, I'm thinking they might not be including the glass breaker there. But again, I'll put those specs up on the screen in a few seconds and you can take a look for yourself so that you can compare this to other knives in your own collection. Okay guys, so let's get into the ergonomics of this knife. This is one of the things that, I'm just going to come out and say it. There's only one thing There's literally only one thing that I don't like about this knife. It's just a little thin. I don't think it's necessarily so thin at the thickest portion of the handle, but up here where the frame lock actually, locks, it makes it even smaller. And this space right here, that's really tight on your fingers. So while it's not, a thin knife from the perspective of like the spine, up here where your fingers are, it's just a little bit of a hot spot. And listen, this is not the worst thing in the world. It doesn't feel that bad, but it does feel very, very thin. And as such, it does kind of create a little bit of discomfort right here. But honestly, I'm telling you, the way they chamfered these edges, inside and out, it's very comfortable. Honestly, even with that, it's very comfortable. The grip is very comfortable. You have so much handle here, and they've got like this palm swell. This is a knife where I pick it up and my hand is just immediately where it should be. And I think if you've handled enough knives, you know what I mean. Sometimes you pick a knife up and you're like, okay, how am I supposed to hold this thing? Every time I just pick this up, I'm there. I'm just where it wants me to be. And what's interesting is that I found it kind of feels that way no matter how I pick it up. There's so much handle here, and it's so comfortable. It's got a swell, but it's still basically neutral. It's not a straight line, but it does have a palm swell. This is really, really good. Up where there would normally be jimping, you can see that this knife does not have any jimping, but it does have an upswept portion where your thumb rests. This is just another, I can't really explain it, but it's so comfortable. It's exactly where my thumb wants to be. And what's interesting about it is it's so large and it's so generous that my thumb doesn't have to be perfectly positioned. I think, again, if you're familiar with knives and handling knives, some of them only feel comfortable when they're handled in a very specific way. If my thumb is here, it's comfortable. If my thumb is here, it's comfortable. If my thumb is here, it's comfortable. It is just comfortable. Oh, by the way, if you choke up on the top of the spine of the knife, it is completely crowned. I have not seen crowning on a knife like this. Gosh, I don't know, under like $200. I'll get my hand out of the way there. I'm not used to it. It's one of the first things that I noticed on this knife is the crown. It's nice. It makes it a little bit more comfortable. I will admit, ironically, it's almost a little aggressive. It's almost so round that it's smooth and slippery. But it's crowning. It's extra machining. It's something to consider. Other than that, you might think like, oh, the jimping on the back. You might think that would be a hot spot, or that something around here might be a hot spot. Oh, by the way, it's got a glass breaker. I don't know. Nothing. The pocket clip is not a hot spot. There just aren't any hot spots. It's a comfortable knife. This is really, really good. It's got a utilitarian blade shape, lots of belly there, palm swell, large handle to fit almost any hand. The only other thing I can say, and maybe this is something more fit for the quality control section or the design section, whatever. The face of the frame right here where they cut out for the lock bar, this is actually just a little sharp, but I am nitpicking there because it's really not that sharp. And honestly, even when I get up against it, I can barely feel it. So it's just something I wanted to call out. But I mean, other than that, that's all I got for ergonomics. It's good. It's really good. It's comfortable. Little thin, but overall, that's the only complaint that I can really find here. So what do I think this knife does well? Where do I think it could improve? I might be showing my bias here. I might be giving away, my summary of this knife. I think it pretty much does everything well. Size is objective. This might be a little large for some people, but the ergonomics are good. The fit and finish is good. There's so much about this knife that is good, and I can only complain about a few things. So that being said, actually, let me just say that overall, this is an amazing knife. It's a great knife. I think it pretty much just does absolutely everything well. I'm not even going to call out a specific thing because it just does everything well. Let's talk about the things that I think it could improve upon. So just a couple quality of life things, or, you know, just some finishing things. You know, it's weird to me that they did such a good job chamfering like the entire knife, and then up here with the lock face, they didn't at least, you know, chamfer that as well. And look, don't get me wrong. This thing costs less than 150 bucks. I understand that adding that step to the process might increase the cost of the knife. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about here. On my Sebenza, look, you can see it right there. It's glistening in the light right now. Look how they chamfered the edge of the lock bar. You get nothing. It doesn't grab you. It doesn't do anything. It's just so nice. And they chamfered the edge right there, right? So again, maybe I'm being picky. I don't want to compare it to a Sebenza, right? But it is slightly uncomfortable. The only other thing, maybe less lockup. You know, and I can't even say it's only about 50%, as you can see right there. But again, it's so skinny right here that I think maybe if it locked up a little bit earlier, we would have less of an issue with that. Then again, I don't know, because over time it is going to, you know, continue to move in that direction. So, you know, maybe there's something else there that can be done from a design perspective. The only other thing that I can say, maybe from a fit and finish perspective, the pocket clip moves a little bit. If you think this is unacceptable, I would say curb your expectations. This is like literally the worst thing I can find on this knife, is that the pocket clip sort of kind of moves. The only other thing that I'll really say, I did take this knife apart, and there was a ton of Loctite in here. Ironically, they give you a Torx bit to disassemble the knife in the knife box, and it was so soft that I actually stripped the bit trying to take it apart, and I had to use a hardened bit to take this apart. Oh, by the way, you know what? I'm going to go back on my words. There is something I'd like to call out about what this knife does well. That action. Did you see that? I want to emphasize, look, I'm not shaking this thing at all. I'm just going to turn it. That's gravity. That's gravity. That is no effort. That is no shake. That's just me turning the knife. That's gravity. And guys, as soon as I got rid of the Loctite that was gunking up the pivot, this is exactly how it was. And oh, by the way, it was not bad. Even with gunk in the pivot, it was already really good. As a matter of fact, it was so good that it inspired me to clean the pivot, because I couldn't even imagine this thing getting any better. Lockup, absolutely perfect. No forward and back, no side to side. The action you can already see. It's gravity shut. It snaps right open. Centering, dead nuts perfect. Dead nuts perfect right there in the center with no lock rock, no nothing. Just add it to the list of things that this knife does well. It's a good knife. It's a really good knife. Okay, moving on. Okay guys, so from a quality control perspective, let's get into this, and you probably already picked up on some of this, but everything is really, really good. I mean, look at this beautiful, like, black stonewash finish they have. Look at this machining, and oh, by the way, none of it is sharp. They've kind of chamfered all the edges in there ever so slightly. They don't catch, they don't hurt. Even the jimping here, it does have, like, smoothed edges so that it doesn't actually, you know, create any hot spots. All the screws, no, they're not flush. They're close enough, though. They're definitely in there securely. Love the pivot. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, they give you an extra pivot with this thing. Don't ask me why, but I mean, I don't know. If something happens to your pivot, you get another one, and that's great. Centering is great. There's no blade play. There's no issues there. The action is great. The lockup is great. You know, again, from a QC perspective, I can't say that a sharp edge here is QC, because that's a design thing, right? QC is something that has gone wrong with the knife. They designed this knife this way. It's not some guy's job in QC to, you know, chamfer an edge or something like that. QC, maybe the pocket clip. That's the one thing. This is literally the one thing that I think, you know, maybe something from a QC perspective, the pocket clip is a little loose. Other than that, again, no blade play, perfect centering, amazing action, great lockup, a wonderful blade finish. Oh, by the way, the primary bevel, it's great. It's just great. It's great. It's symmetrical from heel to tip. I didn't have to do anything to it. I've never sharpened it. It's good. It's really good. Same thing, sharpening choil, perfectly adequate. You can see it extends beyond the plunge line, so you don't have to worry about creating kind of a smile there, digging into the plunge. It's just good. Add it to the list, guys. All right, next up. All right, guys, so let's talk about value. I think maybe there's one other knife that I want to bring onto the table right now, and ironically, it's one of the knives that I always compare other knives to. This is the Off-Grid Knives Scorpion. I have not done a review on the Scorpion yet, but I'll tell you right now in advance, the Scorpion, pardon me, is a very, very good knife as well. And yeah, I get it. Looks like we're kind of comparing two of the same knives, all black, everything, blah, blah, blah. But I promise you we're not. The Scorpion runs anywhere from like 200 to 260 depending on where you get it and whether or not there's a sale going on. The Defcon Mako is usually on sale, well, not on sale. It usually sells for 145 bucks. If you get it from White Mountain Knives with a 10% discount code, link in the description, you get what, 15 bucks off, so suddenly it's a $130 knife. Here's the thing. These are both very, very, very good knives. From a quality control perspective, I think I can honestly say there is no difference between these two knives. And oh, by the way, this was manufactured by We Knife Company, okay? Defcon, I don't even know. It says manufactured in China. Hey, that's great. You know, for a price difference like that, you're using the same handle materials. They've both got S35BN. And again, don't get me wrong. I'll get this out of the screen. The Scorpion has an amazing action too. And it did right out of the box. Hey, that's great. But, you know, when you're paying, what, maybe as high as like $100 more for the Scorpion, could I really justify the Scorpion over the Mako? Not really. I mean, if it does speak to you a little bit more, granted, it's, you know, it's got a slimmer profile, and I'm not trying to do a complete comparison here, but from a value perspective, I would say this one wins, right? Because it's almost half the price, right? So if you love the Scorpion, don't get me wrong, go get the Scorpion. It is also an amazing knife, but value, you know, I don't even just want to compare it to the Scorpion, right? Like, here, hold on, one sec. Here we go. I've reviewed this knife as well. Reich 1902 BCF comes in Bowler M390. This one runs about 200 bucks, and honestly, it's got fancier stuff going on. Now, don't get me wrong. There's more stuff going on in the Reich that might justify a higher price. But from a QC perspective, these knives, in terms of performance, it just holds up. It holds up so well. It's an amazing value knife, okay? That's what I'm trying to get at here. Put this up against a PM2, put it up against your favorite Benchmade, put it up against just about anything. It's just a good knife. I mean, end of story. I would highly recommend this knife to anyone who is interested in buying it. That's what I have to say about value. Alright, so let's talk about my personal opinions and let's give a takeaway on this knife. 100% no questions asked. If you think this is a good looking knife and you want to get it in your hands, just buy it. This is definitely, if I was Nick Shabazz, this would be on the gem list. The action is amazing. The QC is amazing. You know, oh, the pocket clip. Okay, great. Whatever. It barely moves, and honestly, it doesn't move once I tighten this down a little bit more. That being said, I don't think it should ever really move at all. But regardless, you know, after a sale price, if you can get this thing for 130 bucks, this is bonkers value. This is absolutely bonkers value. I would put this up against the most popular knives on the market right now, hands down, no question asked. And it comes with so many features. I mean, my God. I don't think people understand, if you're an action junkie, I don't think people understand how hard it actually is to get a knife like this out of the box, or a knife that can do this without introducing blade play or some other issue. This is really amazing. Maybe you might be put off by, I don't know, the weight, right? Because how much does this weigh? It weighs 5 ounces, right? So it's not exactly a light knife, but at the same time, it's not the craziest thing in the world, especially for what you're getting. This is really nice, guys. This is really, really nice. My personal opinion, it would be great to have in anyone's collection. And you know, at this price point, and with this finish, it could totally be your dedicated beater. You know, this is definitely one of those knives that could serve you very well for your absolute entire life. It's stylish enough, it's interesting enough to where you could show it off to your friends. It's got a utilitarian blade shape. It's big enough to do a bunch of work. It's thin enough to carry in your pocket unobtrusively. It's got a good enough action to where if you're just an action junkie, it serves that purpose. It's just really, really good. This is a knife that, you know, it makes it really hard to justify paying more than this for a knife like this because it's just so good. And it makes me want to cry when I think about the fact that not every knife manufacturer makes their knives like this. Because if they did, this would be a much harder sell if every other knife that I bought with similar materials performed as well as this knife, the Defcon Mako, okay? So those are my takeaways. Those are my personal opinions. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you all next time.